This is the Quip and Quill podcast. I'm your host, Devin Rue, professional fantasy cartographer and illustrator.
Hey, I'm Devin Henderson, one of the owners of Elder Eye Entertainment and D4 D&D. That's what I do in the TTRPG community. We are a company that is a production company that helps make really awesome, immersive, cinematic, visual, and audible experiences for viewers in the TTRPG world. Dustin will elaborate more on that and what we've done. We'll probably cover that throughout the interview. But in my day job, when there's not a writer's strike and a SAG strike, which please support them and stand by them as we do. But I am a costumer, specialty costumer, specifically for the movie industry.
Yeah, and I am Dustin Fletcher, the other half of Elder Eye Entertainment and D4, co-DM of D4, and that's again the TTRPG side, and I am also in the film industry. I am in the costume side of things as well. I do specialty costuming, but mainly I am a set costumer and transitioning more and more into an ager dyer, which just means I get to take brand new clothes and make them look old and disgusting and well worn.
I mean, that sounds like fun. I would totally go for that.
Oh yeah, it's tons of fun. I love it. I get to, I have a blood shelf. It's great.
Yeah, aging and dying can be fun until they're like, hey, this one specific piece of clothing, can you match it perfectly? Yep. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, you turn into a mad scientist quickly because, it's really fun when the same shirt, we have like 5 of them, and you put them all in the same dye bath, and 4 of them come out perfect, but one of them comes out pink and it was supposed to be blue. And you're like,
or that one time you put in 4
oh my god,
what is it, plaid,
they were flannel shirts,
and
every single one of them was a different variant shade from bright red all the way down to orange.
Yeah, it was great.
It was fun. Super fun. And then we get to fix that and
to do micro adjustments and make
sure micro adjustments and all right, now I need to adjust this, and everything is due the next day because it shoots the next day. Yeah, it's great.
Of course. Yeah. Doesn't sound stressful or anything.
The movie industry, guys, it's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
And we are like Devin said, we're currently in the middle of a strike for the writers, the WGA, the Writers Union, and SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Union. Devin and I are part of IATSE, which is the crew side of the union. And so IATSE stands in solidarity for the strike, so we are 100% backing them and supporting them. But that also means that we are out of work as productions are shut down, or if they were working and anything new was coming to town, they are not now. So yeah, that's we're get to do a little bit more TTRPG stuff right now,
right,
while we wait on to see what happens with this.
How did you two meet?
Many years ago at this wonderful place called Netherworld Haunted House. You can look them up online. They are one of the most prestigious and highly awarded haunted houses in all of America. It's also the set location for one of the productions that we did called Bookshops of Arkham, that we made with Chaosium and Roll20, which is also up for an Emmy Award this year. But that was
vote
2007.
Was it 2007?
Because I started 2006.
And I started in 2007. Yeah. We started at this haunted house where we scared people, and
as you do,
it was super fun. We had very similar personalities as people have often seen now, but back then I was very heavily involved in a LARP, live action role play, that I helped create called Exadune, and
he bothered me relentlessly.
Like, dude, you gotta come. Like, you're gonna have a blast. It's fully immersive.
If you like being a monster and a creature here, you can be a monster or a creature there, or you can come play a character and blah blah blah. And I was like, look, dude, I'm a nerd. Like I play games and things like that, but I
I'm
had
not
that
that big of a nerd.
But I'm like, yeah, I'm not that big of a nerd.
Right.
And then I got him out there.
Yeah, I went out. I was like, fine. To appease him, I was like, I'll go do one of your one shot, one day things, and
Right, just shut the fuck up after this, though, right?
Yeah, I won't say. Just come out once. That's all it is. All it needs
And-
one time.
I played a monster, and I created the first PvP through my roleplay, and caused the first player permanent death. And I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yep.
Nice.
And that was it. And he was hooked. And from there, we actually came together and we co-ran mini stories at that game for 10 years, which was kind of where we learned that, oh, hey, we can co-run things.
Yeah, we tell stories very similarly and can piggyback off of each other really well. And we had an amazing crew, some friends of ours, specifically that we used for our stories that brought very cinematic elements to our games, including like, fog and lights and
Yeah, basically took what we acquired from the film industry and brought it to the LARP and tried to make each encounter module, as they're called in LARPs, fully immersive.
Yes.
Right. I am a LARPer, although I haven't LARPed in a ridiculously long amount of time because life.
Yeah, same now. After we stopped running that one, we played one or two games when we had time, but we just haven't done it in a long time because, Dustin started running a table or like an at-home game for us, and then the way D4 came about is Dustin saw that Stream of Many Eyes was coming up, and as a half joke on Twitter was like, well, if you guys need a costumer,
let me know where to send my resume.
And they were like, oh yeah, we actually do need a costumer, please. And
Greg Tito sent me a message, and
Nice.
that was it. And next thing I know, I'm flying out to LA for the very first time ever by myself. Never been before. All of the film industry work I've done up until then, I had been in Atlanta. I had gone to a couple places, like New York, Chicago, but I'd never been to the West Coast, never been to LA. So I literally just go to help costume and do this event, and it was a blast.
Nice.
He comes back and he's like, hey man, you know how we watch Critical Role all the time? Well, there's a whole lot of people that are kind of doing that, and it's up and coming. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We should try and do it. Well, we won't do anything big. We'll just keep doing what we're doing at our table.
Yeah, we'll just set up a couple webcams. It'll be fine. We're already, we've got a couple people that are remote as it is at our home game. We Google voice them in. We'll just do something similar to that. It'll be fine. Nothing major at all.
Nothing elaborate. No sets. No costumes. No, we're fine. Come on.
And then we went to Gen Con and talked to people about our idea. And this was still back in the days where it wasn't as saturated as it is now. And a lot of companies were up and coming.
I think it was 2018 is when it was Gen Con 2018. So we went out and we were just like, hey, here's our idea. Here's what we want to do. And with every conversation, it got a little bit more elaborate.
A little bit more elaborate, and a lot of, well, if we are going to make something, we have to make something worthy of all of these people's time.
Because nobody said no.
So,
right.
Cool. Everybody we talked to and asked and was like, hey, here's our idea. We're looking for partnerships, sponsorships. And nobody said no. And we're like, well, shit. Now we have to put up or shut up. And we're like, well, I guess we're doing a full production. We partnered with a production company in our first couple of years, Rock Punch, and tag team with them. Filmed at our friendly local game store, Meeple Madness, out here. The first year, we're literally in the middle of the game store as our set. And then, at the end of that year, we're like, let's build a set.
Yeah, so we built a set. And then that was the end of 2019, and we got to play in our set studio for 3 months, and we all know what happened after that.
Yep.
But we're back in the studio now.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, are you back in the studio for the Velvet Lodge, or?
So the Velvet Lodge, which is our newest release production,
Cinematic horror actual play, I believe,
Yes.
is the proper thing that we have given it. It's I don't say know if it's the proper name. That's what we're calling it.
Right.
Cinematic.
By the way, all of my goth listeners, or horror fans for that matter, have to go see this. Like, fuck, go see this. Or listen to it at best. But I mean, honestly, it's great. I finally got to watch the full episode. The first one, I was supposed to possibly be listening to it earlier today so I can get the second one, but that didn't happen yet. It'll happen later tonight while I'm gaming.
Hey, awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We're very proud of it, but it truly is Lucia's vision.
Yeah, Lucia Versprilli, Seer Sword. She is. Once we did Bookshops of Arkham, we just kind of
Which she was a player on.
which she was a player on. We just started talking, and she was like, "I have an idea. I would love to do a game with you guys." And we're like, "Awesome! You have the same like horror brain and just the eldritch horror vibe that we."
The beautiful thing about her pitch was usually a pitch is kind of like a bunch of notes, some mood boards, and some examples of what you bring in kind of like an outline. And she was like, "I've already made this entire dollhouse. Look at how cool it is." And we were like, "Well, damn."
Right. Oh,
That's
no. Yeah.
Are you sure you've never LARPed before?
Right.
Yeah, so we teamed up with her. It's an original story by her and her brother, and we just kind of art directed with her being the production designer and just kind of coming up with the feel and the look of this lodge, basically this hunting lodge. We actually pre-filmed that back in January, so all of that has been pre-shot. So it wasn't done in studio. We actually filmed on location in the North Georgia mountains to kind of really bring the cast to that hunting lodge feel. So we shot in a log cabin.
Yeah, we found a place that was beautiful and really felt the vibes of what we were going for aesthetically. And then when we got there, we had to do a lot of redecorating.
Yeah.
Right.
Just so things were lined up in camera.
Like you do. Set dressing is what it's called in the film industry. For those that don't know, our set director Joe Hernandez, phenomenal set dresser in the industry, and another one of our old friends from the Haunt came out, and we just had a blast making each episode, like hiding Easter eggs in each episode for not just the episode that is playing, but future episodes. There's a lot of those like just foreshadowing little threads that Devin and I love to put into our stories. We got to do with Lucia through the art direction. And it was just a lot of fun, and it is one of the best stories that I've ever got to experience, and watching the all femme cast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
fucking kill it.
Yeah, it kill it. So good.
So yeah, so episodes 1 through 3 are out now while we're recording this. Most likely by the time this comes out, I'm assuming at least episode 4 will be out, maybe more depending on timetables and whatnot.
Go check it out on our YouTube.
Yeah, so Elder Eye Ent.
Quick rundown of the name of the players so everyone has them.
Oh, yeah. So we have Lucia Versprilli is our game director, because it uses the Midnight World gaming system, and their GMs are called game directors. We have Rhea Sunshine, Ellie Collins, Katie Downey, aka Goblin Katie, and Lauren Urban.
Yeah.
And then we have D. Henderson here as
Grandpa Velvet, Mr. Velvet. I forget his first name.
Creepy.
Yeah, and I play the I guess what would that be, the host?
Yeah, kind of that like old like Tales from the Crypt opener. Guillermo del Toro, if you've ever seen Cabinets of Curiosities.
Yep.
That was a big inspiration both
for those intros.
To kind of give that little like in-world vignette dialogue of kind of what you're going to experience in the episode.
Yeah. If you watch those little prologue vignettes, it gives a hint as to what's going to happen, and or what room, what they may encounter, maybe even what may happen. But also there's visual stuff that are clues for later on in the show. It was a lot of fun creating, like we say, a cinematic narrative, both visually and audibly.
Yeah, and we got to do old age makeup on Devin.
Not me.
Not you, Devin Henderson. Sorry, I see I'm trying here. Got to do old age makeup on him to like really just bring out this like just old lodge owner, I guess.
Yeah,
to call it.
What was funny though is we realized I looked exactly like my dad.
It's true. It's true.
Like my brother helped out as sound utility, and he took a picture of me and sent it to my dad. And my dad was like, "When was I in a cabin?" Yeah. Terrible. Especially with the new technology coming out. But to officially answer your question, it wasn't in studio, it was on location, very much like how Bookshops of Arkham was. We found somewhere that really fit the aesthetic we were going for, and that's what we are aiming to pitch to other companies is
doing that. Just again, no table, people sitting around. You get the feel of, yes, they're playing a game, but it's more like watching a TV show than it is watching an actual play, like an improvised theater.
Yes.
Right.
Live theater. So,
which is terrifying enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great because, with us not doing it live, it allows us to go in and add in, Foley sound effects and, really cut out the like rules questions and things like that, or like the little bit of stuff that just kind of helps it just streamline it a little bit better.
Right.
We also have an amazing composer and sound engineer, Alex Ferre.
Yep.
And I always mess up his last name. That's why it sounded like I was questioning myself.
Yeah, Ferre.
Yeah. But he's fully composing all of the music for the Velvet Lodge. And I, and a couple of his other sound engineer friends, because he works in the industry as well as sound utility. But we had a lot of fun making Foley.
Yeah. So all of the Foley is original. All of the music is original. It's a full-on production, and it is. I usually wait to see the episode live, like Devin does a lot of the like post-production notes and things like that. I'll kind of go in and just kind of look at like the frame up and things like that, but for the most part, everything is on our two post-production supervisors, which is Bailey Jones and Lucia, and then Devin will come in and add some notes, but I tend to watch it live to really, because I want to experience that natural, like, oh, this is so good.
And Bailey was our
director of photography as well.
Yes, and all the shots just so beautiful. The lighting in it so good.
So do you currently have another project in the works, knowing that that's already filmed, or because I know? So let's talk about the strike for a moment, if we can.
Yeah,
okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, one, there's a lot of people who don't quite understand why they're striking, how this affects tabletop or anything else. So would you like to go into that a little bit?
Yes. No tabletop that I am aware of is SAG union.
Yeah. So
Right.
right now the strike is against the producers union, the AMPTP. I always get those acronyms confused. AMTMP, I think is AMT.
Alphabet something.
Yes. But they are basically the large corporations behind most of your shows, Amazon, Disney,
Netflix.
And that is what the strike is against. So no, if a show does not fall under that umbrella of the AM, see, now I've got to pull it up because it's driving me crazy.
But
there's
a bunch of things that they're fighting for, as many unions do, that fight for us and make sure that we get paid what we're worth, and make sure that we're under safety constraints and have access to healthcare and things like that. But right now it's for better wages. But the bigger fight is against AI and what the AMPTP, which I can see.
Yep. I was right the first time. I shouldn't second guess myself.
Is wanting to use AI technology for, and don't really want to get into those specifics because you have your opinion. It is what it is. But I can tell you, it does not help anybody in our industry under those producers at all.
No, I will absolutely go in on that opinion.
Yeah, I mean, because it does fit because you're an artist, and I mean, in that huge thing with AI art, and it's the same thing, AI writing scripts using people's likeness, but as AI. So, I mean, if you've seen the latest Black Mirror, it's literally the first episode of this latest season.
Yeah, Streamberry 100% is what I'll talk about it. What they want to do is they want to scan actors and background actors get paid pennies, and they want to take your likeness in perpetuity to use however they want. Perpetuity means forever. So you could go do something that's really, really cool. Like, oh man, I'm going to work on the next Marvel as some background person. And then they scan your likeness. You only work one day. They digitally insert you for the rest of the days. So you only get paid for one day.
Yep.
And then from then on, they have your likeness to do whatever you want. So cool, you were in a really awesome superhero movie one time, and now you're in something else that you don't want to be in, doing something that is completely against your beliefs or whatever, and you have no say because they own your likeness. The other thing that no one really seems to be talking about is the people that would be implementing this technology are the most screwed over people in the industry, and that is the visual effects and not special effects, it's different, but the digital effects, they're not unionized, right? So they would have so much more work put onto them to work ungodly hours to do these horrible things. And there's been a lot of talks and a lot of things that have just been vile and disgusting. There's people being quoted that are the producers saying that they won't come back to have this conversation until people are losing their homes, and they're willing to have a talk of desperation, which is just beyond evil. And then on top of the stealing people's likenesses for pennies.
Yeah. So the WGA and SAG-AFTRA, it wasn't just a, hey, we're not getting enough money, so we're just going to do this. I mean, the contract expired and negotiations started months ago, and so this isn't something that just happened off the corner. This time last year, IATSE almost struck when we were asking for 2 years ago. Wow, has it already been 2 years? Good Lord.
Yep.
Where has time gone?
I was on Wakanda.
We just wanted reasonable hours, because when it's really, you really see it on filming episodical television, where Monday morning, let's say if I'm on set, I'm a set costumer, I'm not aging dying, so I'm not in the shop, I'm on set, I'll have a 4 a.m. call time Monday morning, but crew call is like 7, maybe 7:30. So there are 3 hours to get people ready. Usually this is on like heavier makeup shows or stuff like that. Walking Dead was a big one where most of us had like a 4 a.m. call to start getting the zombies ready. And we don't wrap until 8 o'clock at night. Every day as the week progresses, call times slowly get later and later and later, where by Friday we have a 6 p.m. call time.
The reason why they get later and later is because the actors and other people
actors have a 12-hour turnaround, and camera operators have an 11-hour turnaround, and then some crew have a 10-hour turnaround, and most had an 8-hour turnaround.
And that means from the time that the production ends on one day, there has to be that amount allotted time before they can start the next day. Otherwise, there are huge monetary penalties.
Yep.
And
What's called a forced call.
And as we can tell, and I I can understand having to pay things for a forced call would suck, and you don't want to do that. So you want to give those people their time, but the people below the line.
Yeah, and the worst part of it, though, once you work what we call in the industry a Fraturday, where you basically work until Saturday morning, is that Monday you got to be back at 4 a.m. So you don't really have that allotted time for your body to reset. And that shows that are filming 8 to 10 months out of the year. So that's 8 to 10 months of you putting your body through that. And it's just brutal. And so luckily, though, with our negotiations last week, we were able to get a much better than it was, where now we have a 36-hour weekend turnaround. So there has to be 36 hours from the time that we end on Friday night or Saturday morning up until we start Monday morning. And so that's a little bit better than it was, there was no weekend turnaround. Or if there was, I didn't notice what it was because I was just looking at the call sheet and going, well, I get about 4 hours of sleep this weekend.
And then our regular days got 1 extra hour.
Yeah, so we now have a 10-hour turnaround for crew members. This is just for IATSE crew. I'm not speaking of actors or writers or anything like that. This is just for IATSE crew members. We have a 10-hour turnaround to where we actually get, that. But we can then still be forced to call. And we have been many times. So even though we have that 10-hour turnaround, yes, our paychecks are much nicer. But again, we're working 15, 16-hour days and then getting maybe 4 hours of sleep to be back the next day. And so this is just the stuff that we who make your favorite TV shows, there is so much hard work that goes into it behind the scenes that it's not a cushy fun. It is fun, and you have to love what you do in order to work in this industry because it is brutal hours.
Yeah, brutal. And we could definitely be paid more. Obviously, if you look at the pay gap. I read something that they get paid 9 times more than SAG. And we know that actors get paid well, but obviously not well enough.
Yeah. Even a low end, low tier SAG day player, they're not making millions of dollars. They're making hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 a day. It's not this, every person in SAG is making multi-million dollars on every production. So it's wild, and we're kind of old Henderson here and I are we're strapped in, and just much like everybody else on crew, we're just waiting to see how it pans out, waiting to see when we get to go back to work, and we hope that it is sooner than later, but again, we'll sit out as long as it takes for those fair negotiations to finally take place.
Here's the other thing. I follow a couple of writers, and one said it so succinctly. He said, "Will AI replace writers?" No. And that is because writers bring something that they don't have. However, AI will replace writers in the sense that AI can't replace writers because it'll never be as good. Ever. Right. We, as humans, just have the natural gift to create. And AI pulls from all of that creativity that ever has been and regurgitates it as ever. When you're watching something, you're like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It didn't change the game.
It was forgettable.
Yeah. That is what AI will be able to create, and that's all a producer cares about, because they can create content instantly, and as long as it's good enough and gets people to watch it, that's the scary part. So if you're like, if you're on the side of the fence, well, if an AI can do it, why, whatever. Hey, I'm all for capitalism and all that kind of stuff. I may not agree with you, but if that's your beliefs, you can have them. This is America. But you're going to, if you like things and every once in a while you watch a movie that blows you away or really speaks to your soul or really changes your perspective on life, because movies and cinematic and writing and all of that is art, and that's what art does to us as people, that's going to go away. So just think about that for a moment. If they win, the industry is going to get real boring.
Even if they wrote phenomenal pieces, the issue with artificial intelligence replacing artists and writers is, one, how that AI was trained, and how any of those writers and artists are not being compensated for literally training the software. So that's a huge issue. This is essentially, for anyone who doesn't quite grasp it, it is someone else coming in doing your job for mere pennies, but they learned everything off of you literally by mimicking you, and you get paid nothing. So you become a trainer for somebody and you don't get any increase in pay.
Yeah.
But you also get to lose your job on top of it.
It's like when you're working at an office job and you're training the underling that is replacing you, and you think you're getting a promotion, but you're getting fired.
Right. Exactly. And the other problem that we have with this is, ultimately, even if these artists are compensated and everything else, you're training software to essentially steal someone else's style. AI can't create its own style. It literally has to learn from everyone else's. So in order for something to be created, even if I got paid for it to learn my style of cartography, the only way that it's going to create anything that looks like mine means that it's essentially going to be mimicking my style, and I'm replaced, so to speak. Which means that, I now lose any of the money that it would have made that, and whoever owns the software makes a ridiculous amount of money for very little effort. So even if you love the concept of artificial intelligence, I sort of hope, especially if you're a listener of mine, that you care more about human beings and earning a living and getting paid for the work that they've put into anything, especially when it comes to art, and that you would care more about human experiences than you do about letting some software billionaire become even more rich and off the backs and work of all the other artists. And if you don't fucking listen to my podcast.
Yeah. Heard it here, folks.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm very opinionated on this.
I mean, and you have every right to be. And I mean, it's this, we understand, and it's scary, and it's bullshit.
We share your sentiments. We're just trying to be
I don't really know. I don't know if I'll ever be able to be, I don't want to be disingenuous. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. There's too many people in this industry that are being extremely affected by, especially in the tabletop space, the amount of artists that have seen their patronage and commissions drop tremendously since Midjourney became a thing.
Because people can just put in some words and get good enough.
quote unquote, make it themselves.
Exactly. And then watching all this stuff go on the DMG, and it's fucking infuriating, because all of us, I mean, we understand not being able to afford artists to create maps or characters or whatever. Like, we all get it. That's fine. However, you are trying to replace us so that even if there comes a point where you make enough money that you could hire an artist, now you don't have to. So no matter what, it's not like the money is ever going to come back to us. And this is the issue. So I actually have a clause in my contract now that if any part of the project uses AI, that I can terminate the contract. I'm not going to do the project.
Hell yeah. Another thing that people may not realize is with the introduction of AI, it's going to infiltrate not just the artistic industry. It'll infiltrate everywhere. That anything can be digitized. And what that's going to do, which is something that's been obviously happening over the past couple of years, is it's going to widen the disparity between the rich people and the poor people, and it's going to completely eliminate the middle class, as that has been getting smaller and smaller and erased over the past couple of years, and this is only going to perpetuate that. But this is a fun conversation.
I mean, listen.
It's a needed one.
Right. The truth is, most of the conversations I have been having are, there's a lot of lighthearted moments as well, but a lot of it is about what it is like to be in this industry already. Like, one of the reasons I really, really want to do this is because the amount of people that come up to me and it's like, oh, I want to be a cartographer. How did you start? How'd you get in it? And I'm like, I don't have a path that you could follow, because it is by, I don't want to say happenstance, because that's not true. It is, I was at a perfect timing with doing fan art for Critical Role. It and just happened to mention it to Matt. But Matt had already seen my artwork before. So to say like it's just because I was doing the fan art isn't true either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. It's the same on as far as like someone asking me, hey, how'd you get in the film industry? How do I get in the film industry? And I just kind of fell into it. I mean, Atlanta was incoming with being becoming a hub for film and TV. I got a couple extra gigs on like a work on Halloween 2, I think was when it was here, and then just kind of fell into this little like a boutique film company called Whitestone Motion Pictures that a couple of us from Netherworld did some work with, and then from there just kind of spiraled here and there, and it's such happenstance.
Yeah.
Right.
If you do want to get into it, look into doing PA work first so that you understand how the set mentality and hours and all of that works.
Set etiquette.
Yeah, you learn all the jargon, and all of that kind of stuff as a PA, which is good. You get paid all right in comparison to other jobs. It's more than minimum wage, but it's nowhere near enough of what PA should be paid because they do so much work.
Yeah. But to put it in a little bit of perspective, though, most PAs, like your set PA, not necessarily your like costume PA or your camera PA, because those are going to be costumers or cameramen, but your normal set PA are going through that grind to become an assistant director. Second, and first AD. And so they go from absolute just bottom of the barrel, doing almost intern work, basically, starting out, locking up a side street in the middle of downtown in the middle of night, making sure that random people don't walk onto the shot, and for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours at a time, to the point where they become assistant directors, and then they get that very nice pay increase. But
there's also some that are PAs and they bounce around and help out other divisions and stuff like that. And we've had many that were kind of going that route and got to the costume side and went, oh, this is actually like fun.
Yeah.
And so they'll change into becoming a costume PA and then work into becoming a costume.
Yeah, it's a lot faster too, because in order to be an AD, you have to have I'm gonna butcher it. It's something like 900 days on set, and or 1,000 or something like that, and you have to literally have a binder of every call sheet that you've ever worked on for every movie. And so so you basically, by the time you turn in that application to the DGA, you're like, here's my binder, and it's like 12 inches thick of crazy call sheets and whatnot with tabs. And yeah, it's wild what the requirements that they have to do in order to get into the DGA.
But for anybody that is interested, I usually have a really direct and very real conversation about what working in the industry is actually like. Kind of like we've gone into a little bit in this podcast, but it looks glamorous. And as Dustin said earlier, it is fun, but you have to love what you do, because you're not going to get paid enough. You're going to put yourself through a lot of stress. If you are a family-oriented person, you're not going to see them a lot. And your partner and all of the people that are in your life have to understand that. And you're going to be tired. You're going to be very, very tired. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a 10-hour day is a short day for us on set or in production.
Those are nice days.
Those are very nice days when you can only do a 10. But
And then on top of it, you come home and run D&D games.
I don't want to talk about it.
What was it that we used? We were like, we work 70-hour work weeks and then do 20 hours of prep.
Yeah.
So we work 90-hour work weeks.
Yep. Yeah. So we decided to also have a second full-time job on top of our full-time jobs. It's right now it's nice because we actually have the time to focus on D4. But when we're both working, it gets rough. We usually get off Friday, sleep, and then we don't sleep until Sunday night.
And if you're listening, you might be like, 20 hours of preparation, why? Just, it's hags and kobolds every week. Just have fun. That's a shout out to Steve. And and the reason why is because specifically for our show, D4, which stands for Devin and Dustin Play Dungeons and Dragons, we aim to be the most canonical within the Forgotten Realms lore, which means we have to do a lot of research to make sure that we're doing everything, or doing our due diligence to make sure that we're incorporating all of the already written rules, paying homage to all of the books, video games, campaign guides, everything Ed Greenwood's done, and all of the people that have helped him create this wonderful world. We do a lot of research to make sure that it feels like those people that are really, really into Forgotten Realms lore can be like, oh man, they talked about this, or oh, that's a nod to that, and stuff like that. And doing homebrew games and changing Forgotten Realms to what you want, 100% okay. Do it. It's your game. It's awesome.
Right.
Your players are gonna love it. But we put that challenge on ourselves for some reason. And then the other thing is that we custom make all of our maps, because even though we all love Dwarven Forge, we know the people, they make amazing art. Not everybody can afford it.
Right.
So we try and showcase landscapes and maps and terrain that are made with very, very cheap materials.
Yeah, most of the stuff are made out of XPS foam, which is the pink or blue foam, insulation foam you can get at your hardware stores, and foam core from the Dollar Tree, specifically from the Dollar Tree, because it's cheap enough that you can peel the paper off without it leaving residue.
Yeah.
And it's just something that we try to incorporate any fight or at least big fight to have a fully immersible map and minis and lights and smoke and fog and fire and other craziness that we decide to randomly put into a miniature scale.
So just so you know, Ed Greenwood is also going to be on this podcast.
Oh, I love Ed so much. He is such a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Yes, he is.
I got to meet him at Stream of Many Eyes, and then Devin and I actually, Henderson and I, actually try to reach out every now and then when we get to a little like oh, there's a little bit of a stump in lore, we can't find any info, we'll shout out.
The only problem though is that
a lot of times he's like, I'm sorry, that's under
it's an NDA.
It's under NDA. I can't really answer. I was like, we understand, but but we can at least then bounce ideas off of him and kind of get from the man himself. And he's actually got a channel now that he started to do a bunch of lore reveals, and they are wonderful.
Yeah.
I wish he started them 4 years ago.
Yeah. And NDA, for anybody that doesn't know, means non-disclosure agreement, which means that you cannot talk about it. It's very, very, very big in the movie industry.
Very, very big in the tabletop industry as well.
Yeah.
At least for us artists.
Yeah, I know. Devin, you understand that, and we understand that. Because Marvel owns a lot of our half parts of our soul.
And those were hard work, but man, it is really cool to, like, when I went and watched Wakanda Forever, I was like, man, that was cool. I got to work on something pretty cool.
That's how I was on Captain America Civil War was my first Marvel movie, and it was just brutal days.
I'm glad I didn't work on one of the ones that are slightly lackluster.
Right?
One of the ones I personally don't like.
But and I had a blast. And I mean, I worked on Shazam, Fury of the Gods, and I know it. A lot of people were like, it's kind of it didn't do so well. I loved it, but it was also one of the most fun sets I've ever worked on. And I just did reshoots. I didn't do the full show, but it was like a month of reshoots, and it was one of the funnest sets to be on. The energy of the crew was just like everyone was happy to be there. Nobody was miserable.
And also, you don't technically get much choice when you're trying to pay your bills.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I have definitely worked on some shows that I was just a paycheck. I was like, I don't hear anything about this. It's not a passion show. It literally is paying my bills.
Right?
It is
not one on the resume.
Yeah, there might be a few of those.
Yeah.
It's still on my IMDb though.
Right. Well, I mean, you have no choice because they, if they put you in the... See, that's the great thing about being an artist. If I don't want to take credit for something, I just don't talk about it because nobody fucking reads the credits in most of the WotC books. So we're good.
Yeah. Ever since joining IATSE and working in the industry, I do stay behind for the credits anytime I go and watch a movie. Either to try and point out friends that I know, or just to show respect to the people that have done it.
Yeah, even if it doesn't film in Atlanta, we'll tend to go because, I mean, we've worked with so many people from all over the world that we can pretty much spot someone we know in the credits on just about any movie we watch. But people tend to look at us a little funny because when that Georgia Peach comes up, we're like,
we did it.
We had something to do with that. Would you, if possible, would you prefer to stay in the industry as you are, or would you, if you were able to go over full time and do tabletop, what would you?
This is a really good question. What we've learned is, or what I've learned about myself, I really enjoy producing the show, like what is it, art directing, and all of production design, all of that. For what we did for Bookshops of Arkham and for Velvet Lodge, if I got paid to do that all of the time, and we got paid enough to really
to have the crew that
is necessary,
able to support and pay for the crew that is needed for that level of production,
I'd move into that.
I agree. If we were able to do what we did with Bookshops and Velvet Lodge full time, and it can become a sustainable living, then absolutely would love to do that. But it is not cheap to make a show of that level.
You have an idea of about how much it is, so to put things in perspective.
So like we'll just say for like a 6-episode miniseries, full on like cinematic style, it baseline $100,000.
Oof.
Just and that is just baseline. It can easily be a lot more depending on how large you want it to go. But it is, and that is going to cover location costs, rentals, equipment, crew, cast,
crafty, and catering, and but here's the big one that we found out: editing, post-production.
Oh
my
yeah.
god,
Yeah.
so expensive. Rightfully so.
Yeah. So,
but good lord,
yeah, Devin and I we're pre and during production.
yeah, we know nothing about post, and we've learned.
We
about
have
post.
learned about post, but going into it, because we're very much a pre-production up, and then we film, and then once that picture wrap and that's it, then it's wrap out, and that's it. That's us. We're on to the next show.
Right.
But that cost would also include advertisement and pushing things on social medias and things like that.
And
all of the post-production stuff.
Yeah, and that is still probably on the lower end for a full like 6 to 10 episode arc.
Just so you all know, when you see how much a movie costs, know that at minimum, and I really mean this, at minimum, a third of that cost, and most of the time it's at least half of the cost of that movie, is advertisement and post-production alone.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And about a good chunk of that is food.
Yeah, and then there's also another chunk on the front, the other half of
the front end
is food.
Crafty and catering. Millions of dollars spent just to feed, because full bellies, happy crew, happy set lives.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how does all of that compare to running a D&D show then?
Running,
obviously, huge differences, but I mean, as far as how much time that you all put into what you're creating and stuff.
Running D4, because we can't leave up our equipment. If we could leave up our equipment, it would be the easy, just walk in and we're ready to go.
Yep.
But we have to be there,
to load in,
set up all the lights, set up all the cameras, and then set up Video Village, which is where you can see where OBS is, if you know how to run a stream game. It's where OBS is. If we didn't have to do all that, D4 would be the easiest. Walk in, do the show, walk out. But we can't because of where it is, and then also because we use that same equipment to shoot other things.
So we'll go in, crew call. We'll have, let's say we go live at 7. Crew call has a 4 p.m. call time. Cast will have a 6 p.m. call time. Our online peeps, because half of our cast is in studio, the other half is online because they've had to move and life gets in the way. We're a 4-year running show. It happens. Right. And so they're usually there around 6:30. We do audio checks and then go live, and then once we wrap,
at 11 we have to pack up. We pack all it up.
Yep. And so
so what I'm hearing is we need to get you guys a studio and secondary equipment so you don't have to take any of it down.
Oh man, that would be amazing. Do you have any idea how much money just came out of your mouth?
100% I know how much.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible.
No, it's definitely not impossible. And yeah, we would absolutely love that, because we would love to do more, and that's just a weekly stream. That's not doing a cinematic show like Bookshops or Velvet Lodge.
And the way we do that is we find a location, and then we take a whole week, ideally, which is what we did for Velvet Lodge. Not what we got to do for Bookshops.
Yeah, I'll even say, like, even more, moving even broader than that, we treat those as actual productions. Like we it's not just a stream. It literally, there's a pre-production period. We have our various meetings, location scouts, et cetera, figuring out what our shoot schedule is going to be for both filming the gameplay itself and also any of the like cinematic elements that we're going to put into it, whether it's prologue vignettes, scenes from the show that we want to actually take and actually make it into an actual scripted, scene or other like that will kind of play into effect.
Pause. When he says scripted, he means my parts as the old man intro, not the actual play.
Correct. Well,
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So taking that and like adding in the elements from that for the scripted elements of the prologue, not the gameplay itself, because the gameplay itself will always be full improvisation.
Oh, you don't script it like Critical Role does?
Yeah, of course. I mean, every actual play is scripted.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you know, like, it's just so easy to film ungodly amount of hours of scripted, no cuts.
Right.
The TTRPG industry has the greatest memorizational actors on the planet. Outshines everyone. You might get a 15-minute monologue in a movie or TV show. We got 2 hours plus.
Right.
Okay, so just so you know, we're the best actors on the planet because we can memorize 4-hour scripts.
Yeah, exactly. No, never miss cues, perfectly on. But yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, please, anyone can do that.
All of the laughing and breaking character, that's also scripted.
Of course. Yeah.
Yes, it has to
Ball
be.
breaks, everything.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of this, actually is going to kind of tangent into talking about someone else. I wanted to give a shout out to one of our original cast members of D4, who is one of the best improvised actors I've ever had the
dramatic improvisation,
and his name's Patrick Logan. And he was Mickey Sykes on Bookshops of Arkham. He's going to be in the upcoming Graveyards of Arkham. He produced and directed they got released today.
Okay.
He produced and directed an amazing Batman fan film called Gordon, which is shot in black and white. Highly recommend checking it out. But he's the one who has really been pushing the TTRPGs is one of the only places where you can truly showcase and develop dramatic improvisation.
Yeah,
Right.
Most people when they think improv, they think comedy because that's where a lot of it comes from. But dramatic improv, as he says, you feel weird doing it in any other space. You can do it sometimes if a director is open to it, to do some improv scenes. Again, a lot of time it's comedy, but in TTRPG, you can, if you so wish, get fully immersed into the character and do dramatic improv. And it's beautiful whenever it happens. And Patrick Logan is one of the best.
Yep. Yeah, so I just want to give him a quick shout out because we're joking about improving and scripting and whatnot, but the actual seriousness behind actually utilizing TTRPG space as a space to showcase dramatic improv is why I love D&D and TTRPGs and this genre of games that we get to tell stories with.
And I absolutely do want to clarify that was a joke. Critical Role is not scripted.
Oh, you heard it here, folks. Devin Rue said Critical Role is scripted.
Right? Oh my god.
No, you can quote me, Devin Henderson.
There
saying
you go.
that we have the greatest actors
memorizing 4 hours
scripts.
scripts.
Quote me.
Yeah. And it like as somebody who has done LARPing and I've been playing this game for over 30 years. I'm old. Let me tell you, like it is impossible to script this stuff, even if you wanted to. Like as a DM, because I am one. No matter how hard I plan, no matter how much lore I write out, no matter how much information I could possibly give my players, it only takes one person to decide to go off track, and all of my players follow suit. And the next thing I know, there is complete and utter chaos. So regardless of whatever I've tried, and there's no way that you can't script that kind of trust and friendship at a table like you experience with a really, really good group.
Yeah, agreed. And it's like Devin and I said, when we DM, it's like we don't have to stay on the railroad tracks, but we'd at least like to see them in the horizon.
Or hear the train in the distance.
Hear the train in the distance.
The reason why I would say that is because we've played sandbox games where
it's just full open world,
and it just feels like there's no direction in the narrative. So we like to. It's kind of like playing a video game. There's a bunch of side quests, like Diablo 4, as Dustin's been playing. There's the main storyline, and then there's all of the open world that you can interact with. But there's always that main storyline that's threaded into everything.
Yep. It's kind of what we try to do. Like, it's like, okay, cool. You want to go off in a random tangent, hard left turn. Great, awesome. Go have fun with that. But that train is still there. You can still hear it choo-chooing in the distance. So, you know,
it's kind of like running an official campaign where you can't stay exactly to the beats of the story, but as long as it's the guidelines, which is really how WotC writes their books anyways, is guidelines. And there might be small blurbs that are scripted, like descriptive scenes of what a place looks like, or a monologue, or a setup for this is the hero quest that I'm offering you. I'm reading it from the book because this is the information you need to know.
Or if you're a paladin trying to give your group a morale boost, for some reason all of my players literally write scripts for it.
Yeah, it's
great.
Good.
Yeah, I love that.
Our leadership feat person does not, and she plays a barbarian, and she's not very charismatic, and it's so beautiful when it happens. She's a brilliant role player.
Oh my God.
Katie Adkins.
Phenomenal. And so she's basically a barbarian, but if a barbarian was a
Valley Girl.
Oh God.
Yeah. She grew up as a noble with a silver spoon in her mouth, and then just got angry.
Our paladin is not very charismatic either. But absolutely believes that he is. So his character is convinced that everything that happens could not possibly be happenstance. It is because of who he is as a person. So he literally monologues these big, huge speeches, and they're horrible, but he believes that it doesn't matter. They're still going to do better because he spoke to them.
I love it. I love it so much. Yep.
Oh yeah.
And it's, I mean, I love this game so much, and even like having a platform that is streamed and public, like we are on D4. We've been running this for 4 years. We've incorporated a lot of the NPCs and relationships that we built in our 20 plus years of LARPing, and getting to implement those into the story, and utilizing, like you said, that camaraderie that you build at a table. Those relationships, they last. They're there forever.
Absolutely.
In you and mold you as a person. I mean, I played a druid for 10 years at a LARP, and it's the reason I love squirrels. He had a squirrel familiar, and I love squirrels because I played this character every weekend for 10 years.
Right.
And it impacts you. And so, but to getting to be able to thread those inside narrative story elements, we got to have you as an NPC kind of cameo, which was amazing and super fun.
The infamous photographer.
Yep.
I parachuted in, I heard.
You did. That's how you sketch your maps. You parachute, and so you get a bird's eye view. And
you get what you do is you get the overall shape of the island or the area, and the closer you get more and more detail as you're going down, and so you're feverishly scribbling this map, and by the time you land, you have a perfect representation of the area that you just parachute on top of.
Okay, you're going to have to tell me, though. Please tell me that I have something that stops the wind current and everything else from blowing my paper and stuff all over. Like, tell me that spell.
Oh, the spell. So what we had is everything that you used was an invention of the Temple of God, which is the invention god and creation. And we had this tablet that like folded out from your chest, that folded down and then out, and your papers were weighted down onto that. And because you have a parachute, it's a slower fall. It's also fantasy. So yeah, it just works.
It's also fantasy. I want the physics, god damn it.
Prestidigitation. No all spell. Does everything.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I want to be Glinda the Good Witch, so just give me a fucking bubble where I have no wind, so I can draw at my leisure as I float down. God damn it. Simple.
Beautiful.
I love it. Yeah. Odalic's Resilient Sphere.
Yes.
Yes. There you go. Perfect.
Odalic's Wind Resistant Sphere.
Odaluk.
Right.
I like Odalic though.
Yeah.
That sounds.
I mean, if it's for me, then it's Odalic.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, right.
So I do have a quick question about all the stuff that you guys create and everything. How do you fund all of that? Because we just established how expensive shit is.
Our industry and funding it ourselves currently. For Bookshops of Arkham, we did have Chaosium and Roll20 help produce. So it was us three footing the bill for that one. For Velvet Lodge, it was
all
us.
out of pocket. Yep, all out of pocket. And then D4, we have a Patreon that helps a little bit, and we have our Twitch subscriptions and YouTube and whatnot. But most of it is just.
Well, with D4, it's a lot less expensive in the on the back end as it's live. We don't have to do any editing and stuff like that.
Minor post-production work to trim down the podcast and
for Velvet Lodge, after Bookshops, we wanted to see if we could do one ourselves and also use kind of as our visual pitch to other companies to say, hey, look, this is what we can do by ourselves.
Yep.
Under our own name, no other producers and things like that, as much as it helped in the other one.
We wanted to showcase a local Atlanta indie TTRPG, which is the Midnight World. And he had sponsored an episode. James Davey is his name. He had sponsored an episode of D4 a couple months before, like right at Halloween of last year, and we were like, well, do you want to come in and do a Halloween special and run the game for us? And he agreed, and we fell in love with the system. Like,
the system is so good.
One of the greatest horror systems I've ever seen.
So he and his brother, combat vets that suffer from PTSD, loved gaming, and it was kind of their outlet. But what they noticed is, and they also loved horror TTRPGs, what they noticed in a lot of other games is, although the mechanic for anxiety or PTSD or madness or however your character copes with the monstrosities and aberrations of the world that surrounds them and how they interact with them, there was no fundamental.
Yeah, it was just a number.
It was just a number, and they felt that was slightly disingenuous.
Yeah.
And so they created a game that respectfully incorporates that into character design and character creation, whether it be anxiety, PTSD, or
and it's basically when you see an eldritch horror, that shit stays with you. And that the entire system is built around that encounter of that otherworldly being, that dread entity, and then that's what you basically utilize as you level up, and it's all done on a clock. So you have seconds, minutes, and hours, and every hour is basically a new level. You get more powerful, but you slowly lose
a little bit more of who you are,
and lose your humanity and become this dread being that.
Another thing that's really awesome is character creation. You can use what the the book has, which is rolling some dice and using the chart. But what's really cool is the chart creates a sentence or a couple of sentences that is basically your backstory, and it starts with like, there was once a time that I saw this and it affected me this way and blah blah. But it doesn't read like a and then. It reads like I just wrote a paragraph blurb about who my character is. And once you understand that concept, you can create your own sentences and mechanics and how that works. But it's beautifully done with what dread entity you encounter, gives you inspiration for what powers you can have, what job occupation you had, and who you are personality wise and stuff like that. It's brilliantly written.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal system. And we, once we initial talks with Lucia, we were trying to figure out what system were we going to use. And once we played the Midnight World, with how weird Lucia's got with this story, and I say weird in a phenomenal way, like not bad weird,
right?
Good weird. It was like, okay, there really is no other system like this. This fits all of that parameters to really make it its own thing.
Less about dice rolling mechanics and more focused on the role play
and the story and uncovering the mystery that is the Velvet Lodge
and how those threads weave with all of the ladies that find themselves there.
Who have you not played with that you would like to?
Brendan Lee Mulligan,
Oh God, yeah, that's
hands down. It doesn't even have to be streamed. I just
Right?
almost got the chance to meet him at one time, and then they had to cancel going to the event, which is understandable. But the way his brain works, like, I'm not huge into comedic style TTRPGs. They're great.
Mhm.
They have their place. If you watch D4 or any of the other productions we make, it's not. There are humorous elements, but that's not our focus.
Right.
What he did with Dimension 20, great cast, great crew, wildly entertaining, very immersive in his storytelling, and the characters he comes up with is great. But what he did, that 4-episode arc with Calamity,
Oh God, yeah.
it's
beautiful.
probably, at least in my opinion, the greatest TTRPG on that you can watch online right now. It is beautiful.
So, I primarily love to play villainous campaigns, and I have a fantastic group that I get to play with all the time, and we really trust and know each other. So it makes playing a villainous campaign fantastic. But for the few times that I've tried to play with other people, the depths to which I want to roleplay aren't good unless they really know me. I would love to play in a villainous campaign with Brandon Lee Mulligan, because fuck, he would be beyond vicious.
In our opinion, who you want to play with, or our suggestion, Patrick Logan.
100%.
Patrick Logan is there's a reason why D4 we started with Dragon Heist, and there's a reason why Dragon Heist took 98 episodes to get through, is because this man is full of machinations, and he played lawful evil so flawlessly. You can, and lawful evil, in our opinion, is the exact opposite, not of lawful good, but of chaotic good. Because
Yes.
chaotic good wants to do what is necessary for the greater good without crossing the line. And lawful evil crosses the line because they know what is necessary for the greater good, in their opinion. And it oftentimes comes with extreme cost, callous
Yes.
cost. And Logan is so good.
Yeah, he is. He's phenomenal.
So good.
Phenomenal. I would love to play with Matt. We've had many conversations. We've hung out. We've talked a lot because we float in the same gameplay style. But
Mercer, I'm assuming.
Yeah, Mercer. Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I say Matt. There's like 600,000 Matts out there.
Right.
Mercer.
Come to learn that there's a bunch of Devons as well.
Right. Let's have an all Bats game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd love to actually play a game with Mercer because we've yet to do that. Because like right when things were starting to scope out to where maybe we would COVID happened and
Yeah. We were riding this great coast. We had so many things in the works. Even made announcements of things that were going to happen, and then
COVID.
Yeah. I mean this with the utmost respect and everything.
Oh God.
Hold on. I literally have so much respect for blind people. They amaze me in every way, because I can't fathom a world of living like that.
Aren't you colorblind?
I am colorblind. I follow a skateboarder on TikToks and stuff like that, and he skateboards blind, and it is just to overcome such an adversity is so inspiring. And to see that people are able to overcome such things, and it leaves me in awe.
Was that skateboarder born blind?
I don't know their full history, but I know they are fully blind. They skateboard with a cane,
right?
And that's how they know where the staircase is,
right?
And if you've ever skateboarded,
I have. I'm actually a former surfer too.
Wow, that's awesome.
However,
surfing is brutal.
Yes, it
not
is.
Kind. And if you've ever skateboarded a staircase,
no,
terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying. And then to do that completely blind is mind-blowing and so awe-inspiring. And there's that. There's a kid that the news did many years ago about how he uses echolocation, and he clicks while he rides a bike.
That is okay. Two things here. One, it is again with utmost respect. You're finding it inspiring, where it's just life for us.
Understand.
Like, we're not overcoming, especially if you're born this way. If you lose sight, especially suddenly, after having it your whole life or whatever, that's a totally different story, because that is a lot to deal with. But if you were like me, where you're born this particular way, and although I am losing sight, my sight is degenerating. It's just such a part of your life anyhow, because I am hyper light sensitive, which means that I sit in very dark rooms and I always have sunglasses on. If I go outside, I am, and it's a sunny day, I am completely blind. So I'm very used to navigating the world without using eyesight. But it's the same as you with your sight for a lot of us. And I understand how for you that is like, oh my God, I can't imagine. But it's sort of like I tell everyone, if you pick your elbow up and you point it at your monitor right now, can you see your monitor through your elbow?
No.
Right. That's the same for us. Being blind means you don't have any information that goes to your brain from whatever appendage everyone else uses. That eye of mine doesn't see anything, which is why my world is two-dimensional. But I can't miss something I've never had, just like you can't miss seeing anything out of your elbow, because it's right.
You guys can't see out of your elbow?
I mean, I can't, but it's also because I can't see out of my eyes either. Right. But the other thing is like there's so many things out there right now that I hate using the term inspiration porn, but it really is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is because there's this really weird I don't want to say like phenomena or let's use misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation about what it is like living with a disability compared to what we need to tell people of what it's like living with a disability. So we actually can be have things made for us. So a perfect example of this is, can I navigate the world without all those wonderful little bumps that we see in the corner of streets? Yes, because those are for blind people. Those are to let us know there's a curb there or a walk, a crosswalk. Can I navigate a world without those? Yes. Should they be there anyhow because it helps sighted people as well? Yes. To help accommodate it. But if we don't explain like how that makes a difference in our day-to-day, then that shit will never fucking be made. I'll never be able to go to a street corner and have that auditory cue of that little sign that tells me that the light is red or green or do not walk. So we will be left behind if we don't talk about these things that would make it easier. At the same time, it unfortunately makes a lot of people think like, oh my God, without that, you would just walk into traffic. No, we can hear the cars. We know that there's traffic. We know that there's people walking around. This is a thing that would make it a lot easier for when we don't have those signals as clear.
Yeah.
Or for someone who is both blind and hard of hearing or deaf. Like it's to make all of us a lot more safer and to recognize that people like me exist in our society. My favorite thing to point out is fully blind people do not need to wear sunglasses.
No.
It is for sighted people that they wear them.
Yep.
Because sighted people end up very uncomfortable if they can't tell where you're looking or what your eyes might look like or the fact that they're closed or whatever. And they don't want to be reminded a lot of times that we're blind. And it makes it so as much as you want to have the conversation about, like I get asked a lot, like, oh my God, what did you have to do to learn to become an artist despite being, your visual impairment? The same exact thing everyone who has normal sight does. Practice. It is the same thing.
Your disability does not define who you are. It's just a part of who you are.
It's the same as if, the problem that we have with the story about the kid who rides a bike with clicking, it's not actual echolocation.
Yes, I know.
Right. And the problem that we have is that when we do share information like that, there's people who think that are absolutely astounded the fact that I dream in texture. When I have dreams, I can hear voices, talk to people, hear sounds, but I don't technically necessarily need to picture something. Instead, I feel things. I feel cold, I feel warm, I feel, gravel under my feet, I feel, wood on a wall. There is texture to it because that's how I navigate my waking world.
I was gonna say, to me, it's not the fascination of, oh, you're disabled. That's how our brains work.
That's where it came from mine, because when I was in college, I went down basically neuroscience and psychology and things like that. And all those just had me fascinated with how the brain works.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's how because your brain processes
Your
feeling
perception.
and touch and the way that you perceive. Your perception is not sight-based.
Right.
It is touch, smell, sound. And because that's how your brain perceives it, that's how you dream. And that to me is just fucking cool.
It is cool.
And it's not cool because you're disabled. It's cool
Right.
because that's how the human.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I totally understand. Like, oh my God, there's a blind skateboarder. At the same time, it's not the adversity of it that a sighted person thinks that we're getting over. It's not the same. The things that we have to deal with are usually, one, being told we shouldn't do it because we're going to hurt ourselves. But if you navigate the world through an entirely different, all your other senses, which are not heightened for the love of God, nobody turns into Daredevil with a lack of sight. We just pay attention to them more, and we look for those clues.
Yep.
Right. So here's a great example. I am a DM. I have everybody at my table. When we're our full group, we are visually impaired to fully blind, hard of hearing to fully deaf, and there's 8 of us, or 9 of us, because I'm a DM, 8 players. Right? When
I'm
it's
nodding and you can't see me, and I just realized that, like, why am I even?
Same.
I'm just like, yeah, totally. I'm totally nodding because this podcast, it's fully audio. You automatically,
Right.
I'm
weird. A blind person doesn't have video. No, just kidding.
yes, I'm nodding along. That is, even though I didn't say anything, I'm like, yes, I'm. This is awesome. Where are we going with this? All right, here we go.
Right. But when it's our smaller group, so I have a co-DM just like you do. But she is deaf, so she's my interpreter for my deaf players or hard of hearing, and it's great because we learned that we have very different ways that we communicate environment, combat, action, everything else that goes on, as well as how we our characters interact with each other. And the hilarious thing is, well, one, almost all of a huge portion of our interactions is text-based. So when we are playing the game, we are there and present and having fun. And when we're not playing the game, we have entire fucking character dialogues and interactions all done in a text. Actually, we're in a Discord. And it's great because there's no lack of communication, despite the fact of how many people have asked us, how does a deaf person talk to a blind person? Are you fucking serious? Right. So we get things like that. We also get but we use all the other clues to communicate. So when it's just me and my visually impaired or blind players, I describe everything without using visual clues because it's usually pretty pointless for us. So I will describe what the air feels like. I describe temperature. I describe whether or not it's humid, it's moist. That's how you know you're in a cave. You can hear things echo. You can hear because I can hear when I'm in a cave, and I can tell the difference between when it's dry or not. I can also tell when it's when ice is on the walls, because sound bounces back very differently depending on the texture it's bouncing back off of. So the echolocation thing, it's not like I'm hearing a sound, it bounces back to me and I know exactly how far I am, or that I'm creating any kind of visual space in my head or picture in my head. It doesn't quite work that way, but I can tell you I'm in a cave, and I can tell you whether it's dry, I can tell you whether it's iced, I can tell you what the floor is, I can tell by the sound of my feet walking on stuff, and anyone who does Foley work knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
also how I do a lot of my descriptors when writing for TTRPG
Mhm.
is I close my eyes and I put myself in like mind's eye theater, right?
Right.
And I focus. I'm like, okay, what do I see? That's the first thing. But then I also like, what does it smell like? What does it
Right.
feel like? And that's just being narratively descriptive, and how a lot of writers for books, because the audience, the reader, is not there, so you have to describe what it's like, and that's really awesome.
How
that
they
you-
should, you mean?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, it's and I mean, honestly, every DM could take a tip from that. Is you don't describe what you see, describe
Right.
what you feel, describe what you hear, describe what you smell.
Right.
I'm actually genuinely glad we're having this conversation, because I know that you personally don't want to be on camera
Correct.
for TTRPGs, but with this podcast, maybe even with a blog or something, you could give hints and tips and tricks to those that are disabled to be included in the game, or know how to include disabled people in their games. And then also, for what we just talked about, helping able-bodied people be better at, one, being inclusive, but
Yep.
then also seeing things. Poor choice of wording, but
First of all, I fully understand a metaphor as
Yeah.
well as the fact that you see, I don't.
God, you dick.
I know, I'm
God.
terrible. I'm gonna get canceled.
What the fuck?
But
No,
to be able to just make themselves better DMs by
Oh yeah.
seeing things through other people's experiences, and
Right.
how to incorporate those skill sets into your own.
Oh yeah, it's actually something that has been, well, first of all, it's going to be brought up the majority of the episodes I have anyhow, because I am a blind person. And I also explain like the terminology. So like a perfect example is, first of all, I do see.
Mhm.
And the concept that most people have of blind people means that you don't see anything. The percentage of people in the blind community who are fully blind is 2%. So the majority of people in the blind community have some form of sight. Some of us only see light, some of us only see blurry colors, but some of us actually see something. Unlike this seeing world, we don't quantify your blindness. If you have a part of you, and this doesn't mean that you have glasses or anything else, but in my particular case, I don't have any information from one of my eyes that goes to my brain. I have less than 5% of vision, or well, technically I have less than 5% of usable vision, which means I have a sliver of perceptual information that goes to my brain out of one of my eyes. And the other one sees normal-ish with glasses. So, but we would all still use, or generally would all use the terminology that I am blind because one of my eyes is.
Yeah.
If you wear glasses and you take them off and you're like, I would be blind without them. Yeah, no, not the same. You can still see, and you can still see with your glasses. The legal definition, or the definition of being legally blind, is someone who without any glasses or surgery cannot see better than 2200 or 2400. I forget which one it is in the US. And, so that is where we start with that. And I love talking about it, because the amount of people that are absolutely like, oh my God, you're blind? Yeah, I am. And yeah, I still draw. It's amazing. Of course, I blow it up a lot in order to see it, which is why I have this huge monitor tablet that I draw on, so I can zoom in to pixels or the size of like inches, because can't see it otherwise. But it's also why I actually have the artistic style I do, because I live in a two-dimensional world. And I learned, here's the adversity that I had to overcome. I had to explain to art teachers that I was drawing what I was seeing. My argument in what I needed to overcome was letting other people understand, like, I will never draw like my teachers wanted me to, because I can't see that. So all of them, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's not a good art teacher, because art is subjective.
Not when they're trying to teach you the basics and then
the
we're like,
fundamentals
okay,
of art. I mean, come on, you took that
right.
the art design and
Yeah.
fundamentals and all of that.
I took everything but color theory and painting, because I'm colorblind. And I didn't fail those classes.
There you go. Same aspect. But yeah, my eldest they're going through that currently, and they're like, I don't care about contour lines and
Right.
And I was like, it's
good to learn.
Yep.
Because especially once you start doing any art for a living, the hardest part is remaining happy with what you do.
Yeah, and I'll even go on that, because you said that you didn't take color theory because you're colorblind, but you learned how to
someone taught me how to see color that I can't see. We were doing a project, and it had to have warning stripe yellow on it, and they're like, hey, can you get me the yellow paint? So yeah, sure, no problem. I come back, and I'm red-green colorblind. Yellow is yellow. I can see yellow. Yellow's fine.
Right.
And I come back, and they're like, oh, you're colorblind. I was like, no, I was like, well, yes, but this is yellow. I know what yellow looks like. And they're like, no, that's a cold yellow. Warning sign yellow is a warm yellow. And
Right.
Cold means that it's a yellow with green in it, and warm means it's a yellow with red in it. And so they taught me how to see the temperatures in colors where I couldn't see the actual color itself.
Yeah, see, that's actually how I learned, excuse me, how I learned that what I saw was different than what everyone else was saying. Was I had an art teacher that was like, we want to teach you, traditional art and the basics, and so we're all gonna do a still life. And I was like, okay, and I drew what I saw, and right, and it's very flat looking, because again, I see in 2D, and to me it looks correct. I thought it was like pretty fucking spot on, but it was all done with pencil. So no color or anything else. And in my frustration with that particular teacher, I ended up taking a lot of photography in black and white, bumping up the contrast and trying to figure out, as I kept drawing, what the fucking difference was between what she said I should be seeing and what I wasn't seeing, which I genuinely thought was like an artistic thing. I didn't realize that it would be like a physical fucking thing. And then I started painting, and I can differentiate color really, really well, because one, I paint in dim, but I paint where I'm in dim light, and I have very strong light, either warm or cold, on whatever object I wanted to paint, so I could have like a really stark contrast, so I could try and create those shapes. But it was the color that made everyone realize that it had depth, and everyone responded to it. I still don't see it, but everyone responded to it. And that's why now whenever someone, sees one of my maps, almost all the time it's in color before they're like, oh my God, that looks like it's 3-dimensional. I'm like, you say so?
Speaking of one of my art teachers, my 3D design teacher had lost one of his eyes when he was younger. And the way that he would grade you is he would constantly move the object around, and it had to be visually interesting from every angle. So he too would see things in 2D.
Not necessarily.
Oh, I mean, yeah. probably not necessarily, I don't know exactly, but he would move it around, and if it wasn't visually interesting from every angle, the way he perceived it, that's how he would grade you. I thought that was...
Speaking of the amazing things our brains do, so I had a fantastic eye doctor that explained how this all works to me one day, and he goes, your eyes are literally just the windows that your brain looks out of. And I was like, okay. He's like, so one of your windows is just painted over. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, it's just, well, I should rephrase that. One of my windows isn't there. And he's like, so your brain perceives 3-dimension, which is why somebody who is born with both eyes and normal eyesight will always see in 3-dimension, even if they lose one of their eyes. The only difference is they will have a harder time figuring out, they'll have a hard time with motion sickness mostly, because that changes a lot when you only are looking through one eye. But your brain will always perceive and will be able to understand field of depth in 3-dimension, where somebody who's born without that has no reference whatsoever. So I understand the concept of 3-dimension, but I have no field of depth. So when I draw or create things or whatever, or walk around my house and try and put something down on a table, I have to be like right over something to put it down, or else I'm gonna just miss, because I have no field of depth. So they may have fully understood 3-dimension, because our brain is what sees it, not our eyes.
Your eyes, but your brain is never seen in 3D because you were born
right
with what that is just, again, from a brain standpoint, that is just
right.
fascinating.
See, that part I love. I'm like, fuck yeah, that makes sense.
The pilot that is in our neat fleshy biosuits is super fascinating.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And so actually it's a conversation that me and my players have a lot, because every once in a while we think about bringing someone else in and realize this is probably not a good idea, because we use a lot of terminology that so telling me that I should suggest particular things to other DMs, I am going to add a caveat to that, because if your players are normal sighted, it's a sense that you shouldn't ever deprive anyone of. So by all means, definitely describe something visually for them. But don't exclude any of your other senses, because sometimes some of your best clues can be given in a completely different manner.
100%.
Exactly.
And that is something that we, as DMs on D4, we'll tell our players, don't interrupt us until we're done describing the room. And they've come to learn that our descriptions in the room is a clue in itself of what is really transpiring. Listen to that purple prose, listen to that explanation of descriptors of not just you see a chair, but what that chair feels like, what that chair smells like, what that chair, is the sounds it's giving off. Because
the clues, it's like being in an escape room. You have to assess all of your surrounding areas, or uncovering all those clues, and you're just getting those through descriptors. And those clues are going to give you the information that you need before, that could be like, oh, that's something interesting, that's what I want to look into, versus the games where the DM isn't descriptive and you're like, okay, well, what's on this wall? And then, okay, well, what's on the floor? And you're like, ugh.
And to kind of bounce off of that, it's why Devin and I work so well together, because my brain doesn't actually perceive, like I am such a visual person, in the sense that if I'm not looking at that thing right then and there, I have a hard time describing it.
Right.
And
which
it
is
just
fully understandable.
Yep. And it's just, I mean, so it's like, yes, I can visualize every scent and feeling that,
when you read it or when you hear it.
but
Right.
for me to actually sit there and, okay, well, now I have to describe it. My brain goes,
Right.
It's a box. It's a box.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's square. It's got 4 sides. I think it has a lid. Do you have any companies you specifically would love to work with? Is it just any company come hire us and make this happen? Like, give me some specifics here.
We're down for working with literally anyone. We understand that there might be some budget restraints for indie TTRPGs, but we could probably, if they reached out to us, we could probably work together with something instead of making a full series, making
Do something. Yeah. We're
a smaller series.
yeah. I mean, horror is our genre of choice, but I mean, any
favoritism,
but I mean, we'll do fantasy, modern, post-apocalyptic, sci-fi, cyberpunk. I mean, yeah. What the more fun I can build a set with, the better.
I will say this, preferably less crunchy. Less crunchy is hard. I mean, very crunchy games are harder to do our style,
Right.
because focus more on the numbers and the math and the stuff like that, and that's if you love that type of game, that's awesome. It's harder to turn that into a cinematic narrative because you're more focused on how the rules work of the game. So loose-based, narrative-based systems are very favorable.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, it's if you have a vision or if you trust us with your vision and you want us to make it unique and not your sitting around a table style, then let's do it.
Right.
Yes. 100%. Anybody that wants to, that's the first.
Yeah, we are happy to be the forerunner, frontier. I don't know, words are hard. Pioneer. That's it.
There you go.
Of this cinematic style and incorporating more than just a table and dice into a story, but really making it more about the theatrical storytelling,
incorporating more cutscenes and visual immersion and audible immersion for our podcast listeners with the Foley art and the music and all of that.
We've always been about immersion. We always, like, no matter, even in our LARPing days, it's the more we can get to just immerse you into that story.
What's the point of LARPing if you're not going to be immersed?
Exactly.
Yeah. If you have a clear vision of what your world, narrative, setting, all of that is, the more you have a clear vision of that, the better that helps us.
But it's not a necessity?
No, it's not a necessity. We can obviously work with whatever. But
I think that what a lot of people think a production company is going to do for a tabletop RPG is like Critical Role, as opposed to a far more theatrical version.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think that they worry that you will be scripting things.
Got it. Yeah. So no script. So the only thing that's going to be scripted is if we do any like prologue vignettes or anything like that, and that is to help seed the episodes, and that is basically built off of whatever the overarching story is, because just any actual play, you're going to have a storyline that you're going off of, and that's what we're building off of when we do a vignette or a prologue or something that sets up the scene. And then
the prologues are really good for when you're watching a movie, right? You're not only seeing things from the protagonist's perspective. There are scenes where you get to see the antagonist's plans, or their conversations that they have, or something else that is affected that calls to action or gives the audience more information about the world, the story, and everything like that. And we can use the vignettes to give the audience more setting immersion and more story immersion that fills out all of the other aspects of the story that the players may not even get access to.
And another thing that we are very excited to do is a actual, like a TTRPG game. A game is, you're basically building a storyboard.
Right.
And to be able to take a scene that takes place at the table and turn that into a cinematic cutscene with the players as like fully embossed as their characters is just, to me, I think will help. Again, it's that
It takes it from table to LARP, and
Right.
even further than that.
yeah,
but
to even like film and like a live improv show where you're seeing, and it's not scripted. You're literally using the lines that they say live and improvised.
it takes it from table play, and one of the reasons why we take the table out of the equation, because table play has a specific feel to it, and we're taking it from table play to live theater, and then to go into the cinematic parts, that would be like stage theater.
Yep.
Right. How polished does it need to be for you to feel like you would benefit what you do for them? Do you know what I'm saying?
Whoever contacts us, there will be different tier levels of talent. Ideally, we'd like to showcase East Coast talent because we're not showcased enough in the TTRPG community. Everybody is like LA and West Coast, which that's where a lot of the big production stuff is, and that makes sense. But if they want to bring in people like that or influencers and stuff, that just changes the tier amount of what talent would cost. But does the talent need to be professionally trained actors? Absolutely not.
Right. So in other words, if they had their own players, like if they already ran a game and had their own players, then they still want to do this. Is that feasible?
I mean, we can talk about anything. I mean,
Okay.
If they have a group of players that they really feel like showcases their system really well, let's do it.
Nice. Okay. I'm just curious because, again, I know a ton of theater people that play tabletop RPGs that would be like, I wouldn't mind something having, turning into a production. Sure, I just don't know if they'd want to do that with you, but that's okay.
But and it's that, it's given that state, especially like coming off of COVID. I know it was 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, but coming off of COVID and losing that stage for so long, to be able to open up, that's when actual plays became saturated, because it was like, well, we don't have a stage. Let's go on Zoom and record us.
What we call heads in boxes.
Yeah, let's be heads in boxes. And there's so many amazing moments in even those games, but the energy of being at a table in person to being heads in boxes and remote is vastly different. And to be able to showcase that on a cinematic level, to where you're immersed in costume in a set that looks like the place that you're playing in. It looks like a bar, it looks like a castle, it looks like a what have you.
Anybody that has ever participated in a Zoom remote game, and then has played at a table, and then has LARPed, and then has done stage plays, or even all the way up to being on a full movie theater set, the further into the immersion you get, the more you're going to get out of that player, that character, that actor, if they are trained that way. Because there's been times, and I've read stories, one specifically, I was talking to a friend of mine, and they were working on one of the newer Star Trek movies, and there's this set that they were on, and it was a curved part of the Enterprise, one of the hallways, and they were carrying something. Doesn't matter. But what matters is they walked from the wooden walls and the open set and the lights and everything into the hallway, and there came a point at the parabola of the curve,
Right.
at the apex, where they couldn't see the exit on either side. And for a brief moment in our world, they were on the Enterprise somewhere out in space. And they said it was the most surreal feeling to have that. And it's the same thing that happens when the further you get into the set design and immersion with costumes and props, which is another thing that we're heavily aspect in our show that we haven't highlighted yet. But everything's like paper props, physical props, puzzle props. It's all tangible in your hand, something you can hold. Even if it is like the legendary artifact weapon that they have to use in order to complete a ritual, or is used to thwart the big bad, that is physically in their hands. And the more in depth you get that way, the more you get out of your players, and it is a completely different feeling. Even just being a viewer when we were on Velvet Lodge in Video Village, watching everything happen, it was just so immersive for us. There were many times that we forgot to take notes. For like, hey, this is an audio cue. Oh, hey, this is a Foley cue, or
Right.
edit out this or something like that. We were just so immersed into the game.